do good people stay? Not because they're blind, certainly not because they're weak, but because they remember the person they once loved and they believe in the possibility of redemption. Annie did. And maybe for a while, a long while, it kept her there. This is Annie's story, and I'm telling it for her. Her husband promised her it would be different this time. He said the words like a vow. I've changed, Annie, I swear. But what followed wasn't an apology. Not really. He would say things like, I'm sorry you feel hurt. I'm sorry you misunderstood me. And somehow the way he said it, soft voice, lowered eyes, that practiced pause before each sentence, it almost sounded sincere. Annie wanted to believe it was, not because she was naive, but because she still wanted to believe that people could change. She stayed because she thought maybe kindness could reach parts of him that cruelty had buried. She stayed because she wanted to believe that love, her love, could redeem the shame and fear that had twisted inside him. But over time, the words started to sound familiar, like lines from a script that she hadn't realized that she was hearing over and over. Apologies that never admitted fault, tears that never turned into change, promises that dissolved moments that needed proof. And that's when Andy began to understand he didn't want forgiveness. He wanted a reset. He wanted to go back to the moment before she called him out, before she found her voice. Because her awareness threatened the one thing that he couldn't lose, control. Anyone who's lived through this knows that moment when an apology sounds right, but it feels wrong. The tone is tender. The words almost believable, but something deep inside whispers, this isn't the same as accountability. You hear yourself wanting to accept it, wanting to exhale, wanting peace so badly that you begin convincing yourself that it's there, that the apology is real. That's what emotional abuse does. It teaches you to make peace with confusion, to confuse comfort for remorse, stillness for safety, and words, plain old words for truth. The narcissist doesn't apologize to repair, they apologize so they can resume. And the survivor, exhausted from chaos, often clings to that moment of calm like it is proof of change. But the apology that blames your feelings instead of owning their actions isn't reconciliation, it's manipulation. They're trying to make it look like mercy. You begin to see the pattern. How I'm sorry for how you feel that way really means your pain is inconvenient to me. How you misunderstood me really means let me rewrite what happened so I can still be right. And slowly you stop translating their words into hope. You start hearing them as they are, because one day your soul gets so tired of waiting for sincerity. You stop craving closure and start craving peace. And that's when healing quietly begins, not with the door slammed or a dramatic exit, but with a quiet, steady decision to say, I don't believe him anymore. This is a moment redemption returns, not his, but yours. This one's for the woman who stayed after a false apology, thinking maybe this time was real. For the one who believed that saying sorry meant seeing damage, for the one who kept giving grace to someone who kept weaponizing it. You didn't stay because you were weak. You stayed because you had hope. And hope is sacred, even when it's misplaced. Never forget that. But now you know that redemption can't be borrowed from someone else's words. It has to rise from your own truth. If you've ever been handed an apology that sounded kind but left your heart aching, this episode is for you, because the power isn't getting them to mean what they say. It's in realizing that you don't need their apology to begin again. Isn't that true? All of this, my book, this podcast, it started because of Annie and me wanting to share her voice so others might not feel so alone, to validate survivors who might be questioning themselves, because I know you do. But this podcast, it continues because of your voice, your courage, your truth. Thank you so much for listening and for always showing up. I'm Keil Hackley, attorney, author of the book Undercurrent, and your host here of the Are You Annie podcast. Please remember, you are stronger than you ever believed. You're a warrior against narcissistic abuse, and you are tenacious, and you're never, ever going to give up on what's important to you. You're not alone here, not in this space. And until next time, make sure you take good care of yourself. You're important and your voice matters. Thank you again, and bye.